I was having a conversation recently with someone who, in the wake of Australia's severe economic lockdown, had been laid off from work. And it was a really difficult conversation to have because naturally this person was struggling emotionally and mentally and financially. But what really surprised me and what really moved me was this person's whole approach to the situation. They said, and I quote, "I'm just trying to take everything as a gift." Now, my friend who was with me at the time thought this was a very strange thing to say, and it probably is. But I also couldn't help but wonder if this comment actually had its finger on the pulse of grace. And it also put me in mind actually of one of my favourite writers, Flannery O'Connor. One of the reasons I love her stories is because they're so unexpected and they're so rich with meaning. She herself said that her fiction was an invitation to deeper and stranger visions. Her stories were also preoccupied with the workings of grace in the most unexpected places, which is one of the reasons why she was so preoccupied with the freakish and the grotesque and the violent. She knew that sometimes it was only moments of great disruption, even violence, that awoke our sense of the transcendent. Flannery O'Connor was only 15 years old when her father died, and of that she wrote this: "The reality of death has come upon us, and a consciousness of the power of God has broken our complacency like a bullet in the side. Our plans were so beautifully laid out, so ready to be carried out, but with magnificent certainty, God laid them aside and said, 'You have forgotten mine.'" Even at such a young age, Flannery O'Connor was aware of how even tragedy could function as the intrusion of grace into our lives. Elsewhere, she said, "We always want our grace to be warm and binding, not dark and disruptive." In a way, she was similar to J.R.R. Tolkien, who famously said that divine punishments are also divine gifts. Through the supreme inventiveness of the Creator, what looks like a punishment may actually be a means of attaining a blessing that could not otherwise be attained. But the question stands, why did Flannery O'Connor and J.R.R. Tolkien think such things? Think such strange things? At a guess, I would say, it's because they were both devoutly Catholic. You see, central to the mystery of redemption, they both knew, was the dramatic event of Christ's life and death and resurrection. It was a life that led up to and a resurrection from crucifixion. And I don't know if you've ever found this strange. I have. But whenever we gather for worship as Catholics, we do so before an image, before a depiction of a man being tortured to death. And I want you to think about that. And I want you to think about that until you actually start to get uncomfortable. Because from the earliest days of the church, we have upheld the crucified Christ, which for the ancient world was the ultimate sign of God's curse, the ultimate sign of God's punishment, and the ultimate sign of tyrannical political power. But for us, in the light of the resurrection, it was the ultimate means of grace. As Tolkien might say, by the Creator's supreme inventiveness, this ultimate punishment became the ultimate means of blessing. And that blessing? The restoration of all creation in Christ. So, if we want deeper and stranger visions of the way grace works, let me put this question to you, because it's been on my mind a lot lately. During this pandemic, in this situation we find ourselves in, how would Flannery O'Connor read this situation? How would Tolkien read this situation? My guess is that they would use the crucified Christ as the key to understanding even the most disruptive moments of their lives. As Pope John Paul II was fond of saying, "The cross stands still while the world turns." And this, I put to you, is the faith of the freakish. Because grace is unexpected, grace is disruptive, and grace is even freakish. Because Jesus is all of those things. Jesus is unexpected, he is disruptive, and maybe we sometimes only encounter him in the freakish. But grace is also everything, because Jesus is also everything. Joseph Ratzinger, who later became Pope Benedict XVI, said this: "Christ allocates ruin to no one. He himself is pure salvation, and whoever stands beside him stands in the sphere of salvation and grace." But what that grace looks like, maybe for that we do need deeper and stranger visions.